Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this evening is a phenomenal woman that I had the pleasure of actually getting connected to through a mutual friend of ours. She is a author, she's a life coach, she's a speaker, she's a mentor, but most importantly, she's a woman of God, and she's taken out time out of her very busy schedule to hang out with this evening to share a little bit of her journey, a little bit of her story, with the hopes of encouraging and inspiring and uplifting others, especially as it deals with the challenges and storms of life that we all go through in some fashion or form. So, with that said, it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you our very special guest this evening, Miss Jennifer Reid-Walker. Jennifer, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Joseph. It's my pleasure to be here with you tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we jump in to our segments for this evening, I do want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give our audience a taste of who is Jennifer Reid-Walker.
All right, thank you so much for that. So, as you said that I am a life coach, I'm a woman of God, and I'm a mentor and a speaker. And for those, you are correct. Also, what I'd like to add, I am a peer support specialist as well for the state of North Carolina, as well as a notary public. However, let me just go back a little. So you hear my accent. So yes, you know I'm not from here. I was born in Jamaica. That's where I grew up. I have been living here in the United States in North Carolina for the past 11 years. Good transition it was. I'm actually living in the same area that I came. I love it here in North Carolina, in Clayton. It's like quiet countryside, and that's my type of thing.
Awesome, awesome. I love that. And beautiful accent. I'm glad that this transition here to the States has been wonderful for you. And again, I've heard some stories about you, a little bit about you through our mutual friend, and read a little bit about you. So I know that you're going to have a powerful story to share with us this evening. I'm excited to learn more about that. And so, with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump right on into things. And start off with something that I always like to do in every podcast that I do is I like to have us to take a few moments to reflect. And what I mean by that is reflect on the beginnings of where it all starts, because I truly do believe that in the early stages of life, even as far back as childhood, there are encounters that we experience. There are people that we meet that we may not necessarily know what it all means in that moment in time, especially being a child, just kind of living life freely and just doing things that kids do. But once you start growing, in years and in experience, and more importantly, you start understanding what your purpose in life is, you begin to remember and recall on some of those incidents and some of those individuals that you've met along the way. And it starts to make sense, the dots start to get connected together, and you begin to put the pieces together in such a way that you say, you know what? This is why I had to go through what I went through. This is why I encountered who I encountered. It was all a divine design plan for me to get to where God had always set up for me to be, ultimately to be a blessing to others, to walk in my purpose. And so with that said, if you would take us back to those early days, take us back to growing up in Jamaica, and kind of share with us a little bit, what was it like for you growing up, fond memories that you have about growing up, as well as if there's any challenges that you'd like to share, you can do that as well. Kind of give us the backdrop of where your story begins.
All right. You're taking me way back, but I love it. Why not? All right. So I do have memories as far as age 3. You better believe that. And being the last child in my family, I was always the one who I had the spotlight. I was the baby sister. And growing up with siblings, there was 6 of us for my mom and my dad, and we were all living together. We had a happy home. Um, yes, we were not the rich folk, but what we had, that was all we knew, and we were comfortable and happy with it. The thing in my household, though, that made me who I am today, or a part of who I am today, is reading. I don't know if it's because my name is Reid, so I'm living up to my name, but I loved to read. I remember my mom, she usually, at age 3, I just started going to what we call basic school. And I remember my mom clearly. She teaches me at home after I come home from school. And that was where I actually got to start liking reading. Everyone, they normally say I am bright, So they would ask me to spell words, they would ask me to read things, and all of that. And I remember that clearly. It left a mark in me because I remember when I do that, when I read and when I spell, they would, like, everybody that comes to the house, they wanted me to read and to spell for them. Come on, Jennifer, because I can. So that for me, that was something that actually channeled me into who I am today regarding being an author, because I always love to read. And growing up in school as well, I remember writing very good stories. I remember my teachers, we call those back in the day compositions,
Hmm.
where you put the stories together. And I remember I always get good marks for those because my imagination was top tier, as well as if I am doing reporting, meaning, when you go on your summer break and when you get back and they say, tell me about your summer holidays. Yes, so I remembered writing. Also, another thing that I didn't mention at the beginning was that, yes, I am the head of the prayer ministry at my church, Kingdom Life. And what I think that channeled me into that as well was my father. My father was a Christian and he loved to pray and he taught us to pray. So me, prayer was very essential for me growing up, and we pray for things and things would happen. So I know that prayer works. So those are two very important things that I remember growing up, where reading was one and praying was another.
Love that. Love that. It's always good to hear stories of, coming up with in a, in a joyous, way, where life just, like you said, just kind of felt, just pleasurable. You looked forward to each day. You acknowledge the fact that, hey, we didn't, necessarily weren't, super wealthy or anything like that. But those things didn't matter when you have, family and friends and community around you that just kind of supports you and encourages you. And obviously it's clear that you had that encouragement and that support, we don't take those things, to heart, in those earlier days, but that was pouring into you, hey, Jennifer, spell this. Hey, Jennifer, do that. Because people were already seeing the potential in you. They were already seeing the value in you, even when you weren't quite sure, whether, what you had inside of you. And again, I don't think that that is by accident. I don't think it's just people around you being nice. I think it's about God surrounding you with the necessary circle of encouragement, with the necessary circle of prayer. I
Yes.
love the fact that you mentioned that, learning how to pray at a very early age, understanding the power in
Hmm.
prayer at a very early age, because the reality is, and I'm not sure if you paid attention to our title for the show for this evening, when life feels loud, when you're going through life, when you're dealing with challenges of life, and it seems like it's kind of screaming at you, coming at you in all directions, the first line of defense is prayer. The first
Prayer.
line is being able to take that prayer and give it and give whatever it is that you're dealing with to God. And so
Yeah.
clearly, even at those early stages of life, before you even knew that you were going to be an author and a life coach and a speaker and a mentor, it was already being set up. It was already in the mix. It was already in a plan to develop you and transition you into what you're doing today. Now pouring into people, of all walks of life and all different manners, being a blessing in the way that you are. So that's why I like to have these conversations about those early starting points, because I don't want any of our listeners to miss that it's
Yes.
so important, that it's more than just the rigmarole of of growing up, that it's just not something that's just routine or ordinary, that everybody has the same experience. No, everybody has their own unique experience, and yeah, there may be some challenges in between that or whatnot, but it's all for a purpose. It's all by design. So again, I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank
um
you.
Yes, yes. And so, Jennifer, as you know, again, you have a wonderful childhood. You, of course, drift off into adulthood. And as we go into adulthood, there's going to be more experiences, more people that we meet, encounters that we have, some that are going to be, life changing, wonderful experiences. And then, I always say, if you live long enough, there's going to come points in time where you run into some challenges that hit a little different. Maybe so much to the point that even with you being someone who grew up, understanding the power of prayer, even with you being someone who grew up understanding what it means to honor God and to follow Him, you can still hit some storms where you feel helpless, where you feel like there's no way out, where you feel like, you don't know what to do, where your money can't fix it, your titles can't fix it, your degrees can't fix it. It's just you and that storm facing each other head up. And so with that said, tell us about a time that that's exactly how you felt. You were dealing with something. You perhaps didn't see a way out. You didn't know how you were going to get through. It raised fears, it raised anxiety, all of the emotions that come with dealing with storms. What was that situation like for you? And what was ultimately the turning point when you began to see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming up out of that situation?
All right. Thank you so much for that question as well. So, we're going to continue on with my childhood. As I said before, growing up, yes, I had a good life with my parents, with my siblings. But then, of course, there came the turning point. And what happened was, or as I said before, remember we were not the richest of them. All right. So, in our situation at the time, I had family members who we would call them more well off than us, and I was offered a better life. So, with that being said, I was sent to live with a relative, still being a child, but because I was the bright one, and yes, there is potential in me, so why not try to give me a better life? My parents thought, okay, this was something good for me, so they're going to be going that route, so they sent me to live with the relative. However, things went downhill right there because that was where, in that home that I was supposed to be protected and supposed to be taken care of and was supposed to be given a better life, I was molested.
Mhm.
So when I was in that home, of course, that happened, and things took a different turn from there. So for years, that was something that I lived with, something that I was very bitter about. It's not that I was bitter with just the perpetrator, I was also bitter with the family member who brought me to her house, knowing that her husband was a known pedophile. He was known, to do these things. And then it's like she put me in that position. So, of course, I suffered from unforgiveness. And it was, since of late, it was because it took me 40 odd years. So, I was in the process of writing a book, my second book, and that's the one that is called The Journey to Forgiveness. So I started doing some research, and while I was doing the research at the time, it had nothing to do with me. But digging deeper, reading, putting my material together to write the book, I realized that, hey, this book is for me as well, because I am here and I'm suffering from that because I have not forgiven these people. So I decided that yes, I was going to reach out to the family member, which was the blood relative, to say, hey, this happened. It was many, many years ago, but this is something that bothers me, and you haven't said anything to me. I'd like to be released from this. What says you? So it was just me there trying to reach out and to have her to say, hey, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry that this happened. But instead of her telling me that she was sorry, she went on and then she blocked me from the phone. So that, of course, it downhill another time because I'm like, okay, so here I am reaching out, trying to get healed. And the good thing is, in that same season, my pastor had asked me to speak at church to talk about. We were doing the seven last sayings of Jesus. It was in the Easter time, like now, and he asked me to speak on the first line, which was, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And when I was doing that research, reading the Bible and thinking about the line that Christ says when he was on the cross, I realized that not everyone that does you wrong is going to say to you, I am sorry. Not everyone who you want to talk with you or to have a conversation is going to say. So you're going to have to find your way out. And that was when I realized that this is something now that is just between God and myself. So I had to take it on that path. And I prayed about it. That was the moment when I started doing my journaling. I started reading more because remember, I'm also preparing to speak. And then getting that, you know, from my family member. And I was like, no, this is not going to happen. I'm not going to go with this burden anymore. So it was at that moment that I realized that I'm going to have to let go. And this is one of those things that I will say, Father, forgive her, because she knows now what she has done or what she's doing. So prayer for me helped, and then reading the word and asking the Lord to give me knowledge and wisdom about how to navigate this. Because reaching out to someone for help, or reaching out to someone for a repentance, but not getting it, sometimes, of course, it hits you really hard. But thanks be to God, I went through with that. I reached the stage where, yes, I forgave her, so much so that I called her and I spoke with her. We are having a good conversation these days. I even saw her recently because I was in Jamaica 2 weeks ago. I was there for a while, and we went to a function together, and we spoke. So her husband, now the person, they had since been divorced, of course. And the good thing is, and this is the first time I'm talking about this part, even though I say, yes, I had forgiven him, because there comes a time when I had forgiven him, but I was still mad at her because she was the one who brought me in the position, right? So when I went to Jamaica recently, and I was there, and there was a time in my life when I say, if I see this man, I'm gonna slap him in his face if he says he doesn't remember what he did, and all of that. But somehow, my brother went to see him, and when my brother went to see him, and my brother called me, and I looked at him FaceTime, he was looking at me, I was looking at him, and for some reason, what I saw was just pity. I pitied him, and I was sorry for him. When I looked at him, at the way how he looks, how that old man is now looking. I was just looking through my brother's phone because my brother called me to show me. And I was looking at him. When I see around him the condition that he was in, even his clothes that he was wearing, when I looked at him, I said, God, thank you that I did not fight my battle, because when you fight it, it's done better. Because if I had seen him a few years ago, what I would have done was slapped him in his face, and then that's it. But when I allow the Lord to deal with him, because when I looked at him, I said, this man, it is obvious that he's not a happy person today. And I smiled because I realized that, yes, I have forgiven him, and I have given up everything to God.
Wow. Wow. Let me first start off by saying I appreciate your transparency in sharing what you just did. Having gone through an experience like that can't be easy to discuss. I mean, you clearly, at the beginning of the story said that this was a battle that you went back and forth with for 40 something years, just trying to process something that took place as far back as childhood. Can't imagine, what that's like for anybody to go through molestation and dealing with the emotional and mental and physical trauma of it all. Um, but I love the fact that you came to a point in life where you understood that to facilitate your healing, because a lot of people miss this, and I want our listeners to pick up on it, is the fact that the first step of the healing process is the forgiveness of it, and then of course understanding that the forgiveness is not for the other person, but it's for you. um, to forgive them releases you, and then in some instances, and sometimes even the people who are the victim of the moment may have some forgiveness of self that they need to do, whether it's blaming themselves for what happened, that maybe I should have did this, or had I done something different it wouldn't have happened, or just simply blaming themselves for feeling the anger that you felt, because you just said, a few years prior, if I would have saw him on the street, I would have, I would have wanted to, throw hands. If a few years back, the family member who brought you into the home, you were feeling some kind of way with her because you blamed her for even putting you in that position. So something that was supposed to start off in the beginning, that this was supposed to be a better life for you. It was for the best for you because you had this bright future, and then now you're dealing with all of this turmoil and trauma that you didn't sign up for. You're just a kid going through that, and then to carry that well into adulthood, which is not necessarily an unusual thing. A lot of young women and men
who have gone through stuff like that have carried it from childhood into adulthood, has impacted their relationships with other people, and just their whole mindset. Even sometimes being angry with God. Like, how could you do this to me? I'm a praying woman. I've been following you. I've been trusting you to protect me. Why would you even allow me to enter into a situation like that? And so, again, the takeaway with that is just, again, understanding that even the difficult stuff, it is by design, not because God has forsaken you, not because God doesn't love you anymore, not because God has turned his back on you. He has a higher purpose, a greater purpose for what it is that you're encountering. Even when you go through, and it took me a long time to understand this, but even when you go through the difficult times in life, oftentimes the difficult moment that you went through was never even about you. It was,
Mm-hmm.
you were just assigned the task of going through it, because there's some people that you don't know yet, that you haven't met, the faces you wouldn't recognize if you saw them at the time, but God already had an audience. He already had a platform. He already had folks out there who were going to be going through what you went through, or possibly even worse, but they
Yes.
needed to hear from you that it was possible for them to realize healing from that, because you had to go through that process and you realized the healing from it. That they too could experience that they too could have a day where they could celebrate the freedom, of that newfound freedom that they have now, to no longer be bound by this, unfortunate, inappropriate circumstance that took place. So now you were able to look at this man over a FaceTime phone call, and you said you spoke about being joyous in the moment, but not because he was old and frail and had tattered clothes. Your joy came from the fact that God had delivered you from this. And now you
Yes.
could face the person who had haunted you in your mind and in your heart for all of those years. I could now look at this person and not only forgive them, but to feel sorry for them. To
Freedom.
to feel like, you know what? I don't wish harm upon you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not happy that you're going through whatever you're going through, but I pray for you. I
Yes.
forgive you. And in doing that, I free myself.
Yes.
You have your, started off a blocked phone call to now being able to talk to the person, the woman involved, and just being
Yeah.
able to have a conversation and be, on speaking terms. That doesn't
Yes.
mean that you become best friends. And for our listeners, understand, and this is a critical takeaway as well. When you forgive, don't confuse forgiveness with
Reconciliation.
acceptance,
Or
or forgiveness with saying that it was okay that what happened. We're
mhm.
not condoning the behavior. It was, as much as it was wrong back then, it's the same wrong today. But it's not about whether or not it was right or wrong. The forgiveness, again, is about the healing. They're two separate things. We should condemn what was done,
Yes.
to you and anybody else who's gone through something like that, whether it was by his hands or by, people who've gone in their own respective situations. I'm sure we're going to have listeners who tune in who have dealt with that before. And they've often wondered, what would they do if they encountered this person who did that to them? What would they say? Even what was your expectation? And I like the fact that you pointed that out too, about the forgiveness process. Is not about, you can't get caught up in thinking that if you finally get the courage to approach the one who offended you, don't go with this expectation that they're going to, just say, drop to their knees and beg for forgiveness and admit to wrongdoing and all of that. Because unfortunately, while there are scenarios where that does happen, there's many scenarios where it doesn't, where there's no remorse felt, where there's total denial, if you will, where there's total resistance to, to you even approaching them, to the point where they may actually say to you, I don't even know why you bothered coming here. I did what I did and know well, and that's it. But you got to be, the point is that you forgave and God acknowledges that. God will handle things on their end. That's not your responsibility. And that's part in why you had to go through what you had to go through, because in order for you to get to the point of being able to pour into other people, God had to work on you and say, quit trying to do this all by yourself. This is too weighty for you. This is too heavy for you. And I know it is. But what I want you to do is I want you to trust me. I want you to lean on me and let me show you the steps that need to happen so that you can find that freedom. You can ignite, you can execute the forgiveness, and then you can move on with life as I intended for you to move on with. It doesn't mean I forget about it. It doesn't mean I'm dismissing it or acting like it didn't happen. But through God's grace, through God's mercies, through his covering, I'm able to move forward with my head up high. I'm able to get on platforms like this and actually even tell the story, a story that you might have not some years back been even comfortable to even talk about. Now I can freely talk about it because of the freedom that I've encountered, that I've picked up as a result of the forgiveness, as a result of me trusting God to lead me down that path. And that's what makes your story so powerful. And that's what I want our listeners to take away from this. This is the beauty of it. And it's necessary because the healing can't start until you forgive. It's like walking around with poison inside of you, thinking you're hurting the person that did whatever they did to you, when in fact that's just not the math doesn't math with that regard. You
It's
can't.
like drinking poison and waiting for the next person to die.
Exactly, exactly. So the forgiveness is definitely a mandate. I'm not saying it's easy,
Hmm.
especially depending upon the level of wrong. There's some stuff that's kind of hard to, to take that step. But I'm saying it's a necessary step, and it's a step that when you take it and you trust that it's the right thing to do because God said so, the benefits, the outcome from that is far more beneficial to you than you holding that thing inside of you and just expecting that one day it'll just go away magically, because that's just not how it works.
Not
So
how it works, right? And that is why, I to just expound a little bit on that. When I was doing the research with the scripture, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That was something where I say Christ did show us how it's done. Because remember, in that moment, he could have killed everybody. He had the power to.
mhm.
He could have done anything that he wanted to do, but because he wanted to see the face of God, as well as to be the example to show us that, hey, I have been through this. Because remember, they beat him, they spat at him, they did him everything that he did not deserve. And up until the moment before he died, that was it when he said, Father, forgive them. Because remember, it was thousands of them, and some of them were already at their house, some of them were gone. So in that moment he had to just make it right within him and God only. And that is what forgiveness is. Because yes, not everybody's like me who will want to talk. I am the person who I want to talk it over. Come on, let's sit and talk. But not
Mhm.
everyone is going to do that. So there comes a time when you definitely have to find it within you to know that, hey, I'm doing this and I'm doing this for me. And it may not be done the way in which I would want it to be done.
Exactly, exactly. I think you hit it spot on with that. So, again, I appreciate you sharing this. Um, so, Jennifer, obviously, we've discussed some very trying, challenging times dealing with molestation and the challenges that come with that, and the whole forgiveness piece. And again, life has its way of bringing forth storms and challenges that sometimes they're big like that. Sometimes it's just life and just the day-to-day annoyances, nuances that we all encounter in some fashion or form. With that said, when you find yourself facing challenging times, again, whether it's something major or minor, it doesn't matter. What is it in particular that is sort of your routine, your regiment that you like to do, that when you find yourself having one of those days that you're facing something that you got to deal with and work through, what does that look like for you in terms of the process, the steps that you go through to kind of helps you keep yourself focused, locked in, and ultimately being in a clear mind and position to be able to work through that situation and experiencing the victory on the other side of it? What does that routine look like for you?
And I'm going to be as transparent as I possibly can. First, definitely, I cry. I would cry first. I would say, Lord Jesus, help me. Because sometimes things are so bad that I can't stop to do a prayer. I can't find the words. So, yes, I would get in close connection with God. And that is crying, praying, definitely journaling, because it does help. How it helps me, there are a lot of things that I may want to say, especially if someone has done me wrong. but I don't want to say it to them because I'm angry. So I journaled. I will just write that out. Or sometimes I just write things on paper. When I'm done, I will tear it up. Also, I may be texting. I will go right under the person's name and do a text, a very long text. And when I'm done, I delete everything. So, those are the ways in some of the ways in which I do. So, cry, pray, journal. I also like to sit quietly sometimes and just try to listen to me. What is going on in me? How did I reach here? Why did that happen? Was I the one who caused this? Try to do some form of introspection. This is it, this is not it, and so on and so forth. But for me, I'm the type of person who, my biggie is I normally deal with things, the worst things, with calmness.
Mm.
Because first thing, when I'm frightened, I'm very calm. So when things hit me really hard, you'll find me very quiet and very calm, and that is when I go through things. So crying, praying, journaling, and spending some time with myself.
Love that. Love that. I think one of the key takeaways in what you just said, and some people, again, depending upon what background you come from and how you grew up, and this is especially so with men, this happens to a lot. But we kind of get into this mindset that when you're dealing with challenging times, that when you're going through that, if you cry, if you show any kind of emotion, that somehow is a sign of weakness, and that's totally untrue. Let's get that out. Um, for you to give yourself an opportunity to release, whether it's like you said, whether it's in tears, whether it's punching a bag, whether it's screaming out loud to the air, you have to let the emotion of the moment come up out of you, because it's necessary for that stuff to be moved out of the way. So
Yeah.
ultimately, once you've taken those deep breaths and kind of calmed down in that moment, now you are in position to hear from God. But
Yes.
because if you got too much stuff going on in your head, you're all emotional, you're in your feelings, and you just kind of you're at risk of having those knee jerk reactions. You're at risk of spewing out words that you can't take back. That's what the beauty of journaling is, or in your scenario, like you said, whether I'm journaling or whether I text it, but I don't send it. As soon as I get it out of my system, what I'm feeling in that moment, I delete. Once I write down what I'm feeling in that moment, I tear it up, because it's just, again, it's about me releasing, not me trying to exchange jabs, not me going tit for tat with, whoever it is that I'm feeling some kind of way about or whatever. It's not about that. It kind of goes back to that freeing process. How do I cleanse myself out of whatever it is that's got me feeling some kind of way in the moment, so that now when I go to God in prayer, I can not only speak to him with clear perspective, clear thoughts, but I can also, at the conclusion of my prayer, I'm now an open vessel ready to receive what it is he has to tell me. And you got to be ready even in that. You got to be ready when you understand what prayer is about. You got to be ready for whatever God tells you. And 9 times out of 10, the direction that he gives you is completely opposite of what you had plans on doing. Um, but you got to be okay with that. Why? Because he's perfect. He's all knowing. He's never going to tell you something that's going to be the wrong thing to do. He never promised that it would be easy to do. He never promised that it would be at the top of your list of choices if you had it your way. But there's a reason why you went to him, because you didn't know and you wanted to make sure that you did things decent and in order and in the proper way. So, but in order to even get to that place, you have to do what you talked about. I got to cry that thing out. I got to write that thing out. I got to cleanse my whole mind of whatever it is that's got me all worked up, so that I can speak to him, but I can also receive back from him whatever it is that he would have for me to do. And now I can move forward, now I got a plan. God has he's laid it all out for me. And that's the beauty about when you cast your burdens on him and trusting in him to handle that. You can now take all that energy that you was given to this, the anxiousness, the fear, the worry, the stress, the stuff that keeps you up late at night, the stuff that gives you knots in your stomach worrying about. Now I can take that same energy and redirect it to more positive and meaningful assignments and tasks that he would have for me to do. And I let him handle that, because I'm trusting, I'm giving it over to him.
This allows for, going back to the title of our show, this allows for my life to not feel so loud right now.
Yes.
I clear my head of the noise, and I give it to him, and he has a way of silencing it. He has a way of bringing calm to the situation where, you know what? I was all worked up 15, 20 minutes ago, but now I feel a whole lot better because I know I've put myself in position to hear from him, and I know that he's going to work it out because guess what? He did it the last time, and the
Yes.
time before that, and the
Yes.
time and the time and the time before that. Every time it worked out. Only when I decided to try to do it on my own, or whenever he gave me advice and I decided that I felt the need to edit it, that's when it got dragged out. That's when it went left. That's when I stayed in it longer than what I needed to. But every time I trusted him and I followed it step by step to the letter, what he told me to do or what he told me not to do, it always not only worked out, but it oftentimes turned out way better than I thought it was going to work out. And so that's where the beauty of the relationship is. That's where the beauty of the trust and faith in what he can do for you, when particularly when you're dealing with those challenging and difficult times. So again, I'm glad you shared that. And for people, for our listeners, if you've been looking for a way to, how do I process dealing with those challenging times, or I know I need to switch it up a little bit, what Jennifer just said is a great starting point if you don't have one to start off with. These are some great right now steps that you can take immediately, to begin to apply to your own lives in how you deal with the different challenges and stuff that goes on, especially when somebody's just flat out and ticked you off today. You got you feeling some kind of way, so you don't go left when you need to be going right.
Yeah.
Where you don't go backwards when you need to be going forward. That you don't
Yes.
overdo when perhaps you need to just. Sometimes the silence is the move.
Yes.
So let God direct you. Let God guide your steps, as Jennifer has spoken to, and you too can experience what it means to effectively deal
Yes.
with those challenging times in life. Because it's not a matter of if, but when.
Yes.
So you just want to be prepared in advance for
Yes.
those type of things. So,
Yeah.
so again, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. And there's
Um,
this one liner, excuse me,
yes,
that
go
I
ahead.
normally pray.
Hmm.
I hope this can help someone as well. I normally say, Lord, in this season, give me the strength to accept your will, even when I am not happy with what you want for me.
Mm,
Give me the wisdom to acknowledge it and know that this is you.
love
And
that.
that helps.
I love that. Because you're not only are you asking him to guide your steps, but I also like at the very top of your prayer, the fact that you acknowledge that this is a season. And
Yes.
so what our listeners need to understand is that when we identify the storms of life, the challenges of life as a season, then that means that this is not a forever thing.
It's
I'm
not a
going through
plan.
something right now, and I'm in a moment, I'm in a season.
Mhm.
It's not intended to last forever, but if God has taken me through this season, there's a reason for it. I may not
Yes.
fully understand, and it may not feel good right now, but because I'm
Mhm.
riding with Him, because I'm trusting in Him, we're going to go through this season. And in the end, I have an expectation just
Yes.
based on past experiences, just based on what His Word tells me, that it's all going to work out. Everything is going
Yes.
to work out for my good, for His purpose in my life, and that's ultimately what matters the most. And so I'm glad, just in that little snippet of what you include prayer wise, is packed full of power. That again, I want our listeners
Wisdom.
that don't have that are looking for that one liner, if you will, because people, we run into people all the time and say, I don't know how to pray, I don't know
Mhm.
what to say. And it doesn't require all of these fancy words and large jargon and all of that kind of stuff. You don't have to be a scholar or a big
Mhm.
time writer and all of that. You're just being real, just being raw, and just telling God what it is that you need, and then trusting. If you had the
Trusting in
boldness to tell him, then
grace.
have the boldness to accept what he tells you in return.
Yes.
On how to work that thing out, and you won't go wrong. That's the bottom line of it. You won't go wrong.
Sure.
Yes, yes. So Jennifer, when you
Mhm.
reflect back on all that life has thrown at you, good stuff, the challenging stuff, and everything in between, if you had the opportunity to sit across the table from younger Jennifer, the Jennifer who, was a creative, enthusiastic, smart child, who went through a traumatic situation at an early age that carried well on into her adult years, who struggled with forgiveness, who felt some kind of way, had some bitterness in her heart, but now understands things a little bit different. You now see storms and challenges of life a little bit different. What would you say? What would you say to younger Jennifer that you believe had she known some of what you know now would have benefited her? Not so much that she would have never gone through anything, but that she would have been able to process it or handle it a little bit better, a little bit differently, as well as to our listeners who've gone through some of what you talked about this evening. What words of encouragement would you have for them as they're trying to figure out and navigate, how do I too experience what you've experienced, Jennifer? How do I deal with my challenging times and be able to get those victories like you have and being able to forgive and overcome those traumas and storms of life?
I would say, Jennifer, be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with your heart. Everything that you're going through right now, it's a part of your process, your purpose, and this is just your nurturing. Your life is going to be helpful. It's going to be helping others. Everything that you're going through, hold on. It will be worth it after all.
Love that. Love that. I think that's excellent advice for younger Jennifer. I think that's excellent advice for any of our listeners who are just looking for those first steps to take in that healing process, those first steps in that forgiveness process, those first steps of truly experiencing freedom once again from whatever it is that's been holding you down, binding you in some kind of way, whether it's just been a few days or weeks or whether it's been years. In some
Yes.
instances, this is your opportunity to have that break free moment, just with the simple but yet impactful, powerful advisement that Jennifer has shared. Can be life changing, can be game changing for you. So I would encourage you to embrace that and everything that we've talked about this evening, because we're sharing as we're sharing, because we want you to know that there is victory is possible.
Victory.
That yes, that overcoming is possible. That that getting through the stormy seasons of life is possible. That it's not just limited to just a couple of people, that you can experience the same thing too. You just need somebody to pour into you, as we're trying to do this evening, and then you trusting in him to guide your steps, guide your way along, and being able to deal with all of this and overcome it, and being able to ultimately speak about it in a bold and with your head up high type of way, feeling no shame, no embarrassment, but feeling joy, feeling peace, feeling calm about it all. It no longer hinders me. I now use what was a trying, traumatizing time in my life to be a blessing to other people. And that is when you get into that mode, it's just something special. It's just something unreal. It's hard to even put into words what that feels like. So
Right.
again, I appreciate that, Jennifer. Um, Jennifer, this has been a phenomenal time hanging out with you. I love the story that you've shared, your journey, being so transparent, being vulnerable as you have. You've blessed me, you've blessed my listeners, and I'm so thankful that we were able to get connected through our mutual friend and make this happen. This was definitely worthwhile, and I'm glad that this opportunity presented itself. And I can't thank you enough for accepting the invitation and being willing to share as you have this evening. But with that said, before I let you go, as is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, we want to take an opportunity to bless you, to lift you up, to love on you, to celebrate you. So if you got anything going on now or coming up down the road, we want to know all about it, how people can get connected, support, be a part of this experience that God is taking you through well beyond this podcast episode in the weeks and the months to come. And if nothing more, we just want to be able to keep you lifted in prayer as God works through you, using you as a vessel to be a blessing to other people. So what do the people need to know, Jennifer, that we need to be in touch with and in tune with what you got going on?
All right. Thank you so much, Joe, for that opportunity as well. I enjoyed the conversation. All right. So, yes, I do have some things going on upcoming for the month of April. Um, April is my birth month, and normally I celebrate every day of April. But what I'll be doing this year is every weekend in April, I'll be doing something that has to do with my books and my business. So on the 4th of April, which is the first weekend, I'm going to be having my podcast launch. So I've started taping already, and my podcast is entitled Love on Conditions. And it is based off, of course, 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not boast, it does not envy, and everything else that goes with it. But are you loving on those conditions? People like to talk about unconditional love. So what I will be doing, I will be speaking with people that has to do with relationships. So whether it's marriage, divorce, friendship, mother-in-law to daughter-in-law, as best friends, as long as it's a relationship where love is concerned, that's what I'll be doing. So that's the podcast for April 4th. And then the second week, which is from the 15th to the 17th, I'm going to be having a forgiveness summit. It's a 3-day summit. It's free and it's virtual. Each day we will have at least 7 speakers or presenters. And that is something that we're working on right now. There will be more information as well on my website, which is jmreidwalker.com. Also, for the third week, which is the okay, the third no the okay, that was the third week. Oh, the second week is gonna be the book launch. I'm sorry, of my new book, which is Love on Conditions, War Cry: 90 Days of Impactful Prayer for You to Fight, Conquer, and Win. So I'm gonna be having the book launch of this one, a book reading session and all that. This book is my third book. I've written 3 books, as I was saying. The first one is Love on Conditions, Understandable Communications in Marriage. This one, it has 5 stories in it where I speak with married couples, problems they're having in their marriages, and how they navigate them for the greater good of marriage with God. And the second book is the star book that I was telling you about, which is The Journey to Forgiveness, a powerful breakthrough in healing and freedom. And then this is my new baby. This one has just been published February 2nd. So it has not yet been launched, so I'm going to be doing that. And just as we were talking, we were having that conversation where you mentioned that some people, they will say they don't know what to pray about because they think, maybe because I pray a lot or you pray a lot, they may think that they have to sound like us. So that was what brought this book into life, where I wrote prayers for people. So every situation that you can ever think of, it is in this book. So whether you are praying simple prayers about surrendering to God, sanctification of your marriage, prayer for your daughter, your son, witchcraft, walking in your purpose, sexual promiscuity, infidelity, avariciousness, whatever it is that you can name, it is in here. So what it does is, there are prayers where people can just read them. You can repeat them if you really don't know what to do or what to say. And then after a while, the aim is for you to gather your own words. All right. So this book is going to be launched. And then the last thing that I'll be doing for the month of April, of course, I'm going to be having a free masterclass about love and conditions. So I do have a workbook that goes with this. And, we'll be going through the stories and using the workbook and to help people understandable communications in marriage. So this one is very towards if you're a couple or as long as you love love. This is for you. Come on out because there are different types of stories in here. Not everyone is attached to a married couple because I find that even though the problems were in their marriage, it did not stem from the marriage itself. You get what I'm saying? So that is that.
Yes.
And then, of course, I'm now doing my ebook promo, which is from today, March 12th, and it goes on till the 14th, where you can download a free ebook of the new book. All right, so that is now running right now. So if you have access, you can do that. And I must tell you as well, the big thing that I have is I have a forgiveness course. That, of course, it can be accessed through my website as well, jmreidwalker.com, and it will take you to the portal. It has 4 modules in it. You will hear me talking. There are prompts, there are journal prompts, and you will have videos of me talking to you as well. I will share my journey. My journey is in there. What did I actually do to get over, you know, as I shared my experience with you, the ways in which you can forgive, how to forgive, and all of that. And the big thing, just like how it's in the book that I wrote on forgiveness, chapter 4 talks about to forgive yourself. So we will be going through that as well in the course as one of the modules, because let me say this, people will forgive their perpetrators and they will forgive and forgive and forgive. But when you lay in your bed at night and you ask yourself the question, why did I do that? Or if you say, if only I knew, why didn't I? That is you being hard on yourself and not forgiving yourself. And there is an entire module in the course that will help you through that as well. So, those are what I have coming up now, and I'm excited about everything. You see how I wrote them down, right? So, you see me looking down, I'm looking at my list because I didn't want to forget anything. So, thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listeners, Jennifer has some powerful, impactful stuff going on between the books, the upcoming podcast, workshops, masterclass. I mean, virtual speaking events. I mean, she's got it all packaged up for you. And this is all stuff that's just coming up in April. We're not even talking about what's to come in the months and the years to go. So she's on her job. Clearly, she's walking in her purpose, doing what God has called for her to do, and is not missing a beat in the process. So if you need to get connected with any of this stuff, it's going to be impactful for you. Please check out our website. Please tap into all that she has coming up. And if somebody doesn't have an opportunity to listen to this podcast episode, but you know that they could benefit from some of the things that Jennifer is has coming up, please spread the word and let them know about it so they too can get connected. So this is an opportunity for you and others to be blessed by this. And again, Jennifer, wish nothing but God's covering and blessings for you, and that he continues to give you the strength and everything that you need, the vigor, the encouragement, the excitement that when you're walking in your purpose. Some days it gets hard. Some days you want to give up. Some days you get tired, but you are pressing on, pressing through, and we're just trusting that God is going to continue to build and build and build. And I'm excited and looking forward to more and more to come from you again in the weeks and the months and the years to come. So again, blessings to you. Thank you so much for sharing with us as you have. And to my listeners, if you've enjoyed our broadcast this evening, if you've been blessed, been encouraged, been uplifted, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is about. We're all about encouraging. We're all about uplifting, being transparent, vulnerable, pulling back all the layers, not here putting on a facade, not here trying to sound like we all have it all figured out and that we never go through. Everybody goes through something. But the one thing that matters the most, the difference maker between those who go through and those who have struggles with it, is, do you have a relationship with Christ? If you've not given your life to Christ, if you've not trusted, God's way and following him and building that connection and relationship with him, I'm here to tell you that not only is it a must do thing for you, but today would be a mighty fine day to make that happen. It'll be the greatest decision that you ever make. He will never leave you, never forsake you. He loves you unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for you. And he has an unlimited supply of love to go around. He's just waiting for you to receive him, to accept him into your life. And from there, not only will he bestow upon you an abundance of blessings, but he will also, through you, using you as a vessel, allow you to be a blessing to so many others. It is game changing. It is life changing. And it is something that, we're not telling you something that we heard. We're telling you something that we know from firsthand personal experiences, how he's done it for us. And if he can do it for us, he can do it for you too. So with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, you keep fighting that good fight, keep trusting, keep leaning into him. Cast those burdens on him. Quit trying to do it all by yourself. Do as Jennifer spoke of. Embrace forgiveness. Free yourself from the traumas and the pains and the sufferings. That's what it's all about. But more importantly, just grab hold to God and never let him go, and just watch him just blow your mind in so many ways and in so many facets and forms and areas of your life. Trust me, you cannot go wrong with making that decision. So until next time, you take care of yourselves. Have a great rest of your evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.